Here we go. We're going to start right now. So the first of all these things that I have to say is always thank you. Okay, thank you for joining us. Thank you for, I would say, first of all, for your engagement in the community. It's really very important. Today we're going to start. You probably realize in our community recently, Florian made it and a poll and a survey asking you what is a topic you were interested. And I have to, first of all, thank you for all those that provide us an answer at the poll, because you guys is really important. For us, as an owner, as administrator, also official contributor, we need to understand what is a topic that you are really interested. And that is what we're looking for, because with this type of information, we can, build any kind of activity that might help it more to you. So today, that's exactly what we have done. Thank you, Florian, who is the man who organizing this type of a series, if you like. We call it Modern Endpoint Series, that will allow you to see different topic that you voted or you answered in the poll that we already asked it to you. So we're going to try to not be a longer webinar. We're going to be focused exactly. For example, the one that we are going to watch it today is related to automation, which is automation is one of the things that you are asked for quite a lot, especially with the PowerShell and Graph. And for that, we have two of our experts. We have Florian. I'm going to call it then now. I'm going to disappear. I'm just only here to say hello and to open up this new series that is going to be coming more, because more official or contributor will contribute with more exciting webinars like this one. And then let me first of all to open up my two good speaker here. Here we go. Not sure, guys, can you test your sound if it works properly?
Yeah, hello everyone.
Good. I hear you both. So here we go. We have, first of all, Florian. Florian Salzman is one of the, very well. He is one of the good one. Every time he posts, he got a lot of reaction. He posts really nice content. And here we are. He's the organizer also. He's the main organizer of this endpoint series, which he's doing a great job. And thank you so much, Florian, for doing this. This is really very, very, very helpful. And in other hands, we have Yannick Reinhardt. Yannick joined us recently. I think this is not a year, but Yannick is one of the contributors in our community, really good one. And nearly weekly, I don't know how you do that, but weekly, like a Florian boom. And don't stop. We are happy with that. So as long as you can keep it doing that job, we are quite happy. I see that people love you, what you do. You be also in the top 1 and the top 10, Florian as well. And that's maybe for some reason. And we want to discover that right now in this webinar. I'm going to disappear, you guys. Let you go ahead, okay? Always in your hands. Putting myself, and I'm here if you need me, okay? But we are over you.
Perfect, thank you, Annie. Can you also share our slide? I hope he can still hear us.
Can you share your screen?
Yeah, I already shared it. You need to share it with everyone. Yeah, perfect. Here we go. Thank you.
Good. Then let's start. Many thanks, Angel, for the nice introduction. Today we want to present the topic automation with Intune, with PowerShell and Graph. But before we start in the real presentation, we want to start with a short introduction of ourselves. My name is Yannick Reinhardt. I'm senior system engineer in the largest chemistry company in the world. I'm working in the workplace environment as technical lead for the topic AIOps. With AIOps, we try to make really end-to-end analytics across the whole IT environment to extend the end-user experience, to become more proactive, and so on. And in addition to this, I'm Microsoft MVP, I'm blogging on my blog yannickreiner.com. I'm a mentor and also speaker in some events. Good. And with this, I will hand over to Florian.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, good day, everyone. My name is Florian Salzmann. I am coming from Wil. This is a city in Switzerland, 30 minutes away from Zurich. I work as a consultant in St. Gallen, also a city in Switzerland, where I accompany my clients in the journey to the cloud and to the modern workplace, where my primary focus is within the endpoint and security space, of course, including Intune and a lot of potential for automation. Challenges I find during my day and my work or things I discover, I also share on my blog. That's scloud.work. And same as Yannick, I got awarded this year as a Microsoft MVP, and this I would count to one of the biggest achievements yet. And then I also have some hobbies. One of the biggest one is of course tech, and then I also love to travel the world and discover new cultures, new wines, and just explore. So with that, back to you, Yannick.
Thank you, Flo. Good. Then let's start quickly with the agenda, what we have planned today. We will start to show you why we make the whole thing. Why is automation so important? After this, we will talk about how you can start. What do you really need to build automation? How you can collect data, how you can access this data or export this data, and how you can trigger action in your Intune environment. After this, we will show you a typical flow, how you can start to build up automation. And then Flo will also show to you some practical examples out of our blogs and also show to you a live demo. Good. Why is automation so important, especially in the Intune environment? I guess there are three main aspects. The first aspect is, I guess we have a big move. When you compare the SCCM environment with the Intune environment, you have a big change. In the past, you have to maintain your whole infrastructure. You have the full responsibility. With a move to the cloud, to Intune, Microsoft took over a lot of this responsibility, and you can only concentrate on the content. But you also have a lot of new possibilities what Intune offers you. Not only Intune, but the whole Microsoft stack, the whole Azure stacks also provides you a lot of new possibilities to implement nice and also intelligent automation. The second aspect is you are an expert, you are high skilled. Why should you concentrate on lazy tasks, reoccurring tasks, which has to be done every day, every hour? No, this is something you can shift the whole load to the machine. Let do this work by the machine, and you as expert, you can concentrate on the real stuff to drive digitalization, to develop new products and stuff like this, to also develop yourself. Move all the load to the machine, which is possible. And the third aspect is the complexity of the IT environment will grow from year to year. Every year we have new technologies, we have new tools which will be introduced. And also here, you should focus on the real stuff to be on track in the whole growth of the IT environment and move everything what you can do to the machine to make your life easier and to concentrate on the important stuff. Yeah, but with this, we will directly jump into this topic. On this slide, you can see different services which are really important to build automations. Automation is, in our point of view, not only to trigger action. Automation starts with data. Without data, you can't build a really smart automation. This means data is the basic for everything. But not only the data, you have to collect this data. This is one part, but you also have to access this data. And when you have this data, you have full possibilities to build smart automations. The services what you can use, which Microsoft provides you directly with Intune, is the Intune Data Warehouse. The Intune Data Warehouse is a kind of database which keeps really structured and also historical data. This means you can link, for example, this data warehouse with Power BI and look how was the compliance state of my devices yesterday and how is the compliance state of my devices today. This is only reporting, but you can also utilize this data for make some report, to send out notifications when you see you have an really high increasing of faults or errors in your environment. You can also use this data as basic for your whole developments. The next service we want to talk about is Log Analytics. Intune provides out-of-the-box integration into Log Analytics workspace to have a log forwarding. This log forwarding is for transactions. This means if we have an Intune environment and Florian make a change on a configuration policy, this transaction will forward it to this Log Analytics, and I can send me a notification, hey, your colleague has changed something, please check it if everything is right. This is one example, but also in this Log Analytics, you have device data. You have your full list of devices you have in your environment with OS versions, for example, and a lot of other attributes. Also, this data is really valuable for building automations. Then we will jump to a really powerful service. The service is called Endpoint Analytics. Endpoint Analytics has two main aspects. One aspect is Endpoint Analytics provides you a lot of out-of-the-box data, like blue screens, like user experience data. But the most important thing, Endpoint Analytics provides you the proactive remediation scripts. With this proactive remediation scripts, you have all possibilities to automate stuff. Everything what is possible with PowerShell, you can do with Endpoint Analytics. This means you can use PowerShell to collect data, to collect your custom inventory into Log Analytic workspace. You can also detect if there's an error on the device, for example, in crash or something like this. You can directly trigger action. Or you can also use Endpoint Analytics to start a process directly on the client. In the end, as already mentioned, everything what is possible with PowerShell can be done with Endpoint Analytics. And this is a really important service. But with this, we will jump to the next really powerful service. And this is, in my point of view, the most important service when it came to automation, especially to backend automation. It's the Graph API. The Graph API provides you more or less all functionalities you also have in the Intune portal. This means if you open the web page and you click on a button, it's in the background only in Graph call. Graph provides you all data you see in the user interface and provides you all the actions you can also trigger in the user interface. But it also has, for example, a report API where you can export large data, like all devices, all applications, and stuff like this. This means it's really worth to have a deeper look in Graph because more or less you have unlimited possibilities with this service to build automation, to get data and stuff like this. But we also have two other components which are also really useful when it came to the point to build automation. It's custom sources. Sometimes for a really smart process, it's not sufficient to only use data which is available in Intune. Sometimes you need data from your CMDB or from some analytic tools or from something else. And for this, you have custom sources like custom databases, but you also have APIs like the API from ServiceNow. And you can also use this data to use this in the automation, but you can also change something on a system. Like when a new device is enrolled, you can change an attribute in ServiceNow that the device is not longer pending for enrolling, that it's already enrolled, stuff like this. Or you can also move the OS version to ServiceNow that you have in your CMDB all the current data. And the last aspect, this is a point you should really rarely use, in my point of view. It's manual. It's not always possible to build a full automated process. Sometimes you need the human intellectual to make some sub-steps manual, like to start this process, to take a decision, which is not possible to describe in a script or stuff like this. I guess with AI, there became a lot of new power to avoid the manual step, but sometimes, also a human has to jump in and do some stuff manually. Okay, now we have talked about which services you have or which possibilities you have to build automations or to include this in automation. But now we will show you a typical process, how I or also Florian built an automation. The first thing is you need the graph URL, you need the endpoint. To do this, you have two different possibilities, but we will show you this possibility later also in our live demo. You can go to the Intune portal and say, hey, I exactly want to trigger this action, rename device, for example. You open your developer tools on your browser, start a network trace, make this action manually. Can you hear me? Sorry. You can do this action manually, and with this developer tools, you directly see how is the graph call and which body you should pass to this graph call to trigger this action. This is one prerequisite you need. When you have all the necessary graph endpoints, you can start to write your script in PowerShell. You can do this locally. You can use, for example, Visual Studio Code, write your script, test it. In the ideal case, you also have a second Intune environment, a dev environment, where you can test it, where you can play around. And when you are comfortable that your script do what you want, that it works, then you can jump to the next step, and this is authentication. For local development, you can use the identity, for example, of your user. But if you want to move it in a scheduled way, you need permissions for your service. One possibility is the app registration. This means you create an app registration in the Azure AD and gave them the really needed permissions. It's important that you have as less permissions as possible to give this app registration. For example, when you want to add a user to an AAD group, only gave the permissions for the Graph API to this app registration to do this transaction. This is one way, but the better way is to give the permissions not to an app registration, give the permission to the managed identity of your automation account. For the automation account, we will talk in some seconds, but let me quickly explain what is a managed identity. Each service in Azure has a similar identity than a person, and you can give permissions to exactly this identity, then you don't have to deal with passwords or secrets or stuff like this. You only can say, hey, this automation account can trigger exactly this action and not more. As already mentioned, we need an automation account. It's really easy to set up this. You have to open the Azure portal, search for Azure Automation, and then you can deploy this service. And Azure Automation has a really nice feature. It's named Runbooks. In this Runbooks, you can copy paste your PowerShell code, and then you can create schedules to say, hey, the script should be run once per day, or you can also trigger this per webhook. This means if someone order an article in ServiceNow, you can trigger this automation that this will start. For the point how to start with writing a PowerShell script for Graph, to automate a task in Intune, and also for how to start with Azure Automation, I wrote 2 deep dive blogs. If you are interested in this topic, how you can start, you can check out also my blog posts. And with this, I will hand over to Florian, who will show to you now some real examples from our posts.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Yannick, for the all the explanations. We will build on that. First off, we have an example for detecting errors in Intune assignments, something Yannick mentioned earlier as well. You find the blog post attached here, and also we will provide you with the slides at the end. The titles are clickable, that you can go directly to the blog post. In this example, Yannick built a script which gets all assignment errors for configuration policies and app assignments and sends them via email to a defined address that you can get a report there centrally. This is built on an Azure automation and also with app registration. The blog is some months old, where he was not able to do it with a managed identity. Today you could do it also with a managed identity, which we will show you later. Here you see an example of the report that the end user or the IT department would get from this automation. Next up, we have a small task tray tool I built, which can be triggered manually by an end user and sends a message to a Teams channel where the support staff can get some information about the endpoint. This looks something like this. A support employee would see how long is the device up, what network informations are there, and also which local group memberships are in place for this. For that automation, I did not use any graph calls. It's just some VME and registry queries. And also the trigger is manually, but the Teams webhook channel we will see in 2 other samples and also in the live demo we do later. Next up, for a daily report, Yannick built an overview of devices, which also goes into a Teams channel via webhook. Here you get a really nice overview how many devices are in your environment, how many are MDM enrolled or cloud only, and how many are via hybrid enrollment. In this case, none, but some companies still do have hybrid devices. And also you get division into the different OS types: Windows, Android, iOS, and macOS. For this, he did not use an Azure automation. He used a Logic app. That's other options you have to automate stuff. There normally you don't use PowerShell. You go directly with the graph calls and some connectors which you can click together. It's very similar to Power Automate or previously Flow, where you have a nice UI to design your automation. And the last one from the examples, it's a bigger one with a lot of graph calls. This is an automated Intune enrollment where you can deploy a whole Intune environment with more or less 1 or 2 clicks and the login. Then you get some configurations, you get some apps imported and also can customize it to your needs. As you can see here, that needs a lot of graph calls because you have different calls regarding, is it a configuration, is it an assignment you need to do, or is it an app upload? So I didn't list everything here. Also the platform, that's not something you do on a regular basis. That's something you normally do once to build a new environment. So that's a locally run script. Because those examples we showed you here are, depending on the example, a bit bigger and would take too much time, we decided to do a demo with another use case you could have. Also, it's a script that you can build on, you can expand if you need or want to. The goal from our side here was to achieve a weekly device report with devices which haven't been active for 180 days or more. And the report should also be sent to a Teams channel that the IT staff or whoever needs to check on the devices does not have to open the Azure portal and look at the output in there. And another criterion we have for this demo is that we don't want to use any app secrets or usernames and passwords. So with that we go for a managed identity. So what do we need to achieve those goals? First off, of course, we need a script to build the logic. We need an Azure subscription in which we can open up the Azure automation. For the Azure automation, we will activate the managed identity and then the last one we need is a Teams channel with a configured incoming webhook. In our demo, we will start with with the script. For that, I prepared a sandbox here. Yannick mentioned it earlier that we can go to the portal and trace every click we do with the network trace. And also I saw already someone who's watching wrote in that we also can use Graph X-ray for that. So we will do that in this case. We have the goal to find out or to get a list for all devices. I already installed the Graph X-ray. If you have done that, you can simply press F12 on your keyboard when opening a browser. It's compatible with Chrome or Edge. And then you have here the Graph X-ray. And now with every click I make, the X-ray will track my clicks and provide me with the equivalent graph call and also with some PowerShell modules. And clear the session for once, that I can get just an overview of my devices. And here we see the get command for that. So we have the graph microsoft.com/beta device management and managed devices to get a list of all managed devices. And also in this case, we have a filter. For our script, we will need a filter too. I already prepared that. So you can go in here and all for this one would be the main graph call, and after that the filter with the last sync time, where we will add 180 days for the inactive device days. To test out this script, we mentioned it earlier, we don't want to go straight ahead with an automation. We do this with manual authentication. To find out which rights you need, you can simply use this graph call and go to the Graph Explorer, where you can put it in and can either run the query, or under modify permission, you will see which permissions you need to do this request. In our case, we want to list devices with all the properties they have. That would be this one. We also have here a description of what it is. That means we need to do a connection with Graph, with the scope device management devices, and read all. So I will do that now. In here with PowerShell, I already signed in previously. That's why I don't need to apply any credentials. And now we can use our call from the sample within here, also with the 180 days. And send this report. And normally this report, when we look at the response, does not look very readable. For that, we do a quick function which converts us this into a readable format and only lists us the device name and the last sync date time. That would look like this. In my case, I have 3 old phones in the Intune environment which haven't been active for quite some time. So we see them here. Now we know that the script is working, and also we can do a webhook URL to send all of that to Teams. I prepared a URL for that case, and also what I prepared previously is how that it works in Teams. You don't have to type it away from the screen. We will link the scripts that if you want to use them later, you can just copy it and adjust it to your needs. So if we do that and also send it in here, after some time we should get a response, and we go in our Teams, and yeah, here it already is. Just from now we have the device report, the same we had previously in PowerShell, but now in Teams where we can centrally check it. Now, of course, we want to have that as an automation. We don't want to use the script in PowerShell locally every time we need a device report. So we will switch over to the portal azure.com and we'll create a new Azure automation account in here. For that, if you have used it before, it will show up here. Otherwise, you can just search for automation accounts. With a click on create, you will create one. And then you have to use a resource group. If you don't have one, you can create here one as well. And then we need to define a name for our account and the location. And here in the next step is the most important part. It's the system assigned managed identity, which we will use to authenticate later from this automation. And that's already active, so we are good with that and can create it. Now, just after some second, we should have it. And of course, we have checked the check mark for managed identity. We also get a managed identity in the background. This is not visible in here directly. For that, we can go into the Azure AD or the Entra portal, and under applications, enterprise applications, all applications, we have a filter for managed identity. Per default, here are enterprise application listed. So you need to switch to managed identities. And what we should see here is the demo device report. Yeah, and here we have it. Now, one thing that's not perfect in here yet is that you cannot add permissions via the UI like you could do with app registrations. You need to do this with PowerShell. It's not, if you know how, it's not a big step, but you need to know how. For that, we go back into our sandbox, and to be able to give an application enough rights, we need some other scopes. We need the application read, of course, to read the application. We need to write, and also we need the role management to assign roles to the application. Now, the rest of the script doesn't differ from case to case. The only line which is not always the same is this one, where you define the graph scopes you want to assign to your managed identity. In our case, for the script, we need the device management to manage the devices read all scope. So we'll add just this one to the managed identity. When you run the script, it will ask you for the managed identity name. That's the same name as your automation account has. Type it in, and after that it will assign the necessary rights to our managed identity. And if we go back to the permissions tab, yeah, we already see it. We have the device management device read role here where we need it on our managed identity, which belongs to the Azure account. Now we can go ahead in our automation account. One thing we need to do, or we need to be sure of, is that we have the necessary modules in place. In our case, we only need the module for authentication, which we can add here under modules. We can add it, browse in the gallery, because it's a module which is available in the PowerShell gallery. We look here for the correct module. This one, can select it. We also need to define the runtime version, which is 5.1. The rest is still in preview. Import it, and after several seconds, the module should be available. In the meantime, we can prepare our runbook. You will see there are always 2 runbooks in place when you create a new Azure Automation account. We don't need those. We can create a new one. Give it a name with no space in it. The runbook type is PowerShell, and the version same as the module, 5.1. We also could add a description where we put in how many days count as inactive or something different, but for demo purpose we leave that empty. And now we are already in the mode where we can edit our PowerShell runbook. We can paste in here the script we prepared previously, with just one difference, and that's the authentication part. Now we don't need to authenticate ourselves with a user. We have the managed identity to authenticate us with this. We just need to use the connect AZ account identity. Then we can get a token, and with that token we can connect us with the Microsoft Graph. Now we save it and publish it. And after some seconds and maybe a refresh, yeah, we see here we can start and test our runbook. Shouldn't take long. Maybe we check how it looks in here. Yeah, now we got the new one, the new device report. Of course, it's still the same because we didn't change anything in the days, but now we have it from our Azure Automation. If you want to have this on a regular basis, this report, you can add some schedules here and then define how many times the script should run or should not run. With that, we go back to our presentation. I hope this demo was helpful to all of you and you can take something from with it. As mentioned, I will link to all the scripts at the end of this presentation, and also will publish a blog post in 20 minutes where the whole process is explained. Yeah, with that we come to a short conclusion. What we learned today. One key aspect, of course, is automation to help you to make time for yourself and to give you some free time or time for other tasks, like to improve your organization, to improve reliability, to improve your devices and your end user experience, and also can reduce the risk of forgetting some boring tasks, because you don't have to click once a month or once a week onto a script to just get a report or to refresh something. You can have different platforms you can choose from. You can use like a PowerShell script on your machine. You can run it on a server. You can run it like in the example we just did on Azure Automation, or you can use a Logic app. for all those automation, please always keep in mind the part of the security. So try to never use a username and password in those scripts. Try to use a managed identity. That's by far the most secure way. If it's not possible to use a managed identity, try it with the app registration, and those are also good, but not as good as the managed identity, because main point behind the managed identity is really it's tied to the automation. If you delete the automation, the identity is away as well. And yeah, that would be it from my side. I thank you all, and as mentioned from Angel before at the beginning, this is a series. We will have some other webinars in the future. The topics and dates will be announced in our LinkedIn group, and also we will post it in this event. And here's the QR code to download the presentation. I now have an echo from somewhere.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All good. Yes. Okay, I'm going to switch up here to maybe we can. Oh, much better. Okay, thank you so much both, and really nice, really good, really cool to see. The content is. I think it is really was very helpful. Okay, and then as you say, Florian, so in your hands, I think we are going to have a more series coming soon, and then really nice. What can I say? Really good. That's what the community member we really need. Okay, that's the kind of content, the things that definitely is going to help us. So from my side, there's nothing else to add it to. So thank you both. Okay, and then see you in the next webinar series that you, Florian, I don't know what is it. I think it's 2 weeks now, more or less. I'm not sure what is it.
Yeah, more or less 2 weeks.
Good, excellent. Exciting soon to write this one. Thank you so much for everyone. Thank you for joining us. Okay, thank you. Bye, guys.
Thank you all.
Thanks to all.
Bye.
Bye.